Hi, Greg Jake here, and I'm very proud to be up here discussing the Aquatics/Community Center as it relates here to our greater St. Cloud area. And most people understand that the conversation of Aquatic Center has been in our community for several years. During the past 2 years, the conversation of a Y Community Center has really been at the forefront of our board and our staff of how we can continue to expand our community and serve our community in that capacity. So back in June of 2011, just shortly after the meetings here that we had, the top 10 priorities, the board of the YMCA and the staff of the YMCA, we went out and we invested and did some fundraising with our community, and we hired a consultant. And really the action steps that we've taken, and the reason why, is we hired Daxco T2. And the purpose was this organization that we're partnering with has had a great track record with working with other YMCAs, as well as developing partnerships, and partnerships between cities, schools, nonprofits, hospitals, other organizations to make a great community asset. And the purpose of us going back and doing the study basically 3 years after the city completed was we understand that at the time when the city completed their study that it was really during a tough economic volatile time in the community, and we wanted to re-engage and reassess as it relates to the priorities of what a aquatic community center would look like to this community. And so the methodology and the practice behind that, as you can see on the screen, that we completed over 800 individual phone interviews. There is also focus groups. There's 3 different focus groups, as well as interviews with some of the key leaders that we have in this community to identify what is it that we need to have within this opportunity of expanding this role. And so there's been ongoing dialogue, communication, not only with the city administrators, the city municipalities, as well as just other potential partners and partners that make sense as we align through this project. To give you an idea of who we talked to in these 801 telephone interviews and respondents, basically 90% of them were non-members of the Y, which was important for us. We wanted to get a real measurement of what the community needs and what they're looking for. What does that mean as far as the greater St. Cloud area? This map right here demonstrates who they reached out to as it's based upon their zip codes and where they came from. And as you can tell, there's households that are based upon the 2010 census, and then there's some projection and growth rate that shows where the growth may be occurring throughout this community. And that's important as we continue to look at where's the perfect location for this great place to be. Then the next step here is I want to give you a map. And this map, really, those dots reflect everyone that we had communicated with during this phone interview process, as well as during these focus groups. So as you can tell, it is a great mixture of our areas here. And so with this, we wanted to take the data and learn a little bit more about where is the best locations. And what we did is we really went out and based upon some of the previous conversations of the community, we tested 3 regions. And I would say the regions, and we just used some names that would, maybe resonate home with the idea of the location. Not having any land cited specifically in some of these locations, but more just the regional areas. And the 3 areas that were of focus was the Whitney location, the North 15 corridor, which would lead up into Sartell, and then we also said South St. Cloud and used the landmark of the old Walmart as kind of one of those other destination locations that people would understand. And so that's just kind of gives you an idea of the surrounding areas that we wanted to measure to make sure where we could have the significant impact. The other importance of the study was to identify what does it mean. When we hear aquatics, aquatics is a very broad word. It could be a recreational pool, it could be a competitive lap pool, 50 meter, 25 yards. So when you talk about those components, as well as what are you looking for inside of a community center? And so what we did is we wanted to make sure that we conveyed 3 different avenues. We wanted to look for families, for seniors, and for adults. And it was interesting, as we compared this data to what the data was from the city study. There are similarities, but then there's some other things that came out a little stronger that was a little bit surprising to us. One thing that I want everyone to understand is that as we go through our next steps, which I'm going to get into, is that when you talk about aquatics, there is some significant cost in not only construction of aquatics, but also in just the general operations. And so that's why it's critical as we continue during our next step of establishing and identifying partnerships and identifying roles that we make sure that we have those conversations. And so then what is our next steps here? right now, we are in the process of developing facility performance and capital requirements. No matter who is going to be involved in this, we want to make sure that it's going to be an asset that reinvests back into itself, and that we make sure that we're able to sustain this for multi-generations. And so it's critical that we have a business plan that makes sense for everyone that's involved in this process. The other thing is also identifying what the capital needs. Once again, based upon some of those program services that we're looking at, will help dictate the size and the scope of this project, and also the opportunities of exploring it. You know, do we go in 1 phase, 2 phases? So we're really trying to put what's the best business performance related around who the partners are that are engaged in this process. The other thing is we want to continue to determine the fundraising feasibility aspect of it. There is definitely, as everyone knows in the communities, there are different city dollars that are potentially a part of this, but then there's also fundraising that needs to happen as part of this. And while this community is a very generous community, we need to look at the realistic scopes of what that fundraising is possible. And we will continue to look at the dialogue as it relates to who are those natural partners, who are the ones that we need to make sure are at this table to make this happen, and also be benefits of it as it continues to serve the multi-generations of our families and of our community. And so then the $800 million question is, all right, when's this going to happen? And you know, to be honest, we don't have all the data in front of us, but as a target date, what we're hoping to do is have some sort of shovel in the ground in 2015, which means there's a lot of work in front of us and a lot more dialogue and communication that's going to happen. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share.